Nvidia earnings are out and there's a lot to digest. I'm going to break it down for you. We'll also look at a chart and I'll tell you where I think the stock could go next. Headline breaking: Nvidia beats on earnings and revenue as data center sales jump 73%. So we have a couple different numbers here depending on where you look. On CNBC, we have earnings per share 96 cents adjusted versus 93 cents estimated. Revenue 44.06 billion versus 43.31 billion. If you look at Seeking Alpha, non-GAAP EPS 81 cents, beat by 6 cents. Revenue 44.06 billion, that's up 69.2% year over year, beats by 810 million. So we're talking about a beat on the top and bottom lines, a double beat. That's the 7th time Nvidia's done that in a row. Outlook: revenue is expected to be 45 billion. Now the consensus was 45.66 billion, plus or minus 2%. So this is a little bit light on the guidance. The reason for it is this reflects a loss in H20 revenue to China, approximately $8 billion. So if you're not familiar with this, on April 9th, 2025, Nvidia was informed by the US government that a license is required for exports of H20 products into China. As a result of these new requirements, Nvidia incurred a $4.5 billion charge in the first quarter, so that's on this quarter, associated with H20 excess inventory and purchase obligations as the demand for H20 diminished. Sales of H20 products were 4.6 billion for the first quarter of fiscal 2026, but Nvidia was unable to ship an additional $2.5 billion of H20 revenue in this first quarter. So it would have been a much bigger beat if it weren't for these restrictions from the US government. Now, to be exact, we're talking about a $3.3 billion beat if not for these restrictions. Now, margins are really important for the stock as well. We've seen some margin compression. That's why the stock sold off last earnings report. Part of the reason why. Now, if you look at this, the GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins, 60.5 and 61% respectively. Now, if you exclude that $4.5 billion charge, the non-GAAP gross margin would have been 71.3%. Now, these were closer to 75% if you go back a few quarters. Now, same with the earnings per diluted share. That's 76 and 81 cents, would have been 96 cents. A quote here from Jensen Huang: our breakthrough Blackwell NVLink 72 AI supercomputer, a thinking machine designed for reasoning, is now in full-scale production across system makers and cloud service providers. Global demand for NVIDIA's AI infrastructure is incredibly strong. AI inference token generation has surged tenfold in just 1 year. As AI agents become mainstream, the demand for AI computing will accelerate. Countries around the world are recognizing AI as essential infrastructure. Just like electricity and the internet, NVIDIA stands out at the center of this profound transformation. You can see right now the stock is up 3.81%. We will look at a chart later and I'll tell you where I think the stock could be headed next. Let's talk about data center. Of course, this is the most important piece for Nvidia. That first quarter revenue, 39.1 billion. That's up 10% from the previous quarter, up 73% from a year ago. And Nvidia's building factories in the US, working with its partners to produce Nvidia AI supercomputers in the US as well. Introduce Nvidia Blackwell Ultra, as well as Nvidia Dynamo for accelerating and scaling AI reasoning models. Multiple partnerships, including one with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to drive the next wave of artificial intelligence development. Also unveiled Stargate in the Middle East, next generation AI infrastructure cluster in Abu Dhabi. And this is partnered, of course, with G42, OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and Cisco. Revealed plans to work with Foxconn and the Taiwanese government to build an AI factory supercomputer. Unveiled NVLink Fusion. Announced NVIDIA Spectrum X. NVIDIA DGX SuperPod. Joint initiatives with Alphabet and Google to advance agentic AI solutions, robotics, and drug discovery. Also working with Oracle's AI infrastructure for inference software and accelerated computing. And you've got NVIDIA Blackwell Cloud instances now available on Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, as well as Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And I won't read through all these, but this last one's big. Announced the opening of a research center in Japan that hosts the world's quantum research supercomputer. So gaming, we saw an improvement here, a record $3.8 billion in revenue. That's up 48% from the previous quarter and up 42% from a year ago. Professional visualization, still a pretty small segment, and overall it was flat from the previous quarter, up 19% from a year ago. I do think that AV, autonomous vehicles, automotive, robotics will be huge for Nvidia down the road. But we actually saw it down 1% from previous quarter. It was up 72% from a year ago. But Nvidia is doing some great things, partners like Toyota, General Motors, and many others. Now, looking at this revenue trend by markets, I think this is a very powerful visual to see what's going on. That data center, you can see here, this is Q2 FY24. Look at that growth. As we go to the left, this is over here, this is today's report. You're talking about going from 10 to 39. This is massive growth. You know, gaming actually an improvement as well. Pretty slow growth overall in this segment, professional visualization. Automotive, you know, basically doubling, a little over double here. But of course, data center is where it's at. I also want to note here that Nvidia spent $14.1 billion on share repurchasing during the quarter, also paid $244 million in dividends. But $14.1 billion is quite a bit. Now, with that said, keep in mind, it's over a $3 trillion market cap, so not that significant when you look at the size of this company. Nvidia stock is ripping higher as I speak after hours. We're going to look at a chart next. Before I do that, I want to share some general thoughts about Nvidia. As you guys know, I've been long since $3.95. I've listened to every earnings report on this company since 2017. I believe that we're about 1/3 into the process of building out the data centers. In other words, the CapEx spend. Now that could change at any moment, but right now, I think we still have about 2 to 3 years left within this cycle. So going into earnings, this stock, Nvidia, was at $3.3 trillion market cap. And I told the Discord gang, I do believe this will be a $5 trillion market cap. I can't promise exactly when, but it's gonna go to $5 trillion. Nvidia is about 13% of my $2.6 million taxable brokerage. And I own it in several different accounts. So it is my largest position, and I broke my discipline. I generally don't like going over 5% max for a portfolio, and I've got something like 13%. I plan on riding this a little bit longer. I'm going to show you a chart and tell you where I think it could go, as well as share with you where I might trim some shares back. So I told you last year that it'd be a $150 stock. We had a double top at 152, 153 range, dropped all the way down to 86.62 in April. Now this stock ripped from basically $87 post market right now, it's $140.75. So you're talking about a $10.81 stock, late 2022, October 2022, goes from $11 all the way up here to $153, and then cuts in half basically to $86. And not quite half, you'd have to be at 76, but you get the idea. So this was an amazing opportunity if you missed the boat, because you're essentially buying the prices from April 2024. And think about how much growth has happened over the last year with Nvidia. Now, of course, guys, you don't buy off of analyst price targets, and these are price targets before the earnings report. They can get adjusted. They'll probably go higher, though. Right now, the highest price target for Nvidia, $200. The lowest, $100. Average 164. That's a 21.81% upside. So Nvidia is going to have to get back to $150. And this 153 is going to be resistance. It's also a psychological number at 150 if traders are trying to ride it from 130 to 150 and so on. Once you break past 150, I drew this up before the sell-off in April. 162 is a possibility. Really, I'm looking at 165 to 175. That's kind of the sweet spot that I think Nvidia can get to later this year. And I think it's possible if things go really well, the next couple earnings reports, you might see $200 late this year, probably first half of 2026. So I'm bullish on Nvidia. I wouldn't be buying the stock hand over fist at $141. My cost basis is under $4, but I'm bullish and I think the stock's going higher. Told you it's going to go 150. I'm telling you now, 165, maybe even 175, possibly even $200 with some patience. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed, make sure you do subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.